and preparing. We are live. Let's wait for it to come up. I don't have a fancy countdown clock, and thank you all for joining me today. This will be fun. Okay. Somebody named Angela Morris is here. Look what you did, Jeff. No. Okay, we're going to get people coming in. No. Okay, remove Angela Morris. I could spend the whole hour removing people. Okay.
Well, it's strange. It should be limited. It should have only been a couple that even saw the post. So.
Oh, you'd be surprised. You're a popular guy. You have no idea how many people want to see you on live radio. I'm telling you, Jeff, there could be 1,000 of them. And I have a limit, I think, on 100 people on my Zoom link. Okay, Matt, if you want to start feeding us the link, the music, we will do what we need to do.
All right, we'll do. Have a good show, everyone.
Thank you very much. We're waiting for Brenna. Okay, everybody, look amazed.
Where does yesterday's future, which is already here, meet today's future, which is about to happen, and tomorrow's future, which could be just minutes away? Welcome to Technology Revolution, the future of now, where host Bonnie D. Graham asks savvy futurists for their predictions about the tech-driven trends that are shaping our future right now. Here's your host, who will take us into the future of now, Bonnie D. Graham.
That's me, Bonnie D, and we're welcoming one more guest coming back. We're having a couple of audio issues here, and whoever Angela Morris is, we're sorry this is a private Zoom link. Please watch us on YouTube, and we've got Brenna back. I'm Bonnie.
I can't hear you.
Oh, we can hear you. We've got you. Keep smiling. There we go. I'm Bonnie D, and this is the future of now. And right now, the future has been eluding us because we had some audio issues. We're going to talk today about a very interesting topic. Do you live in a city? Do you want to live in the city? Is a city developing and growing near you? Are you one of the billions of people who will be living in the city at some time soon? How do we get there? What do we do once we get there? Is the city going to grow and thrive? Will you have water? Will you have land? Will you have a job? Will you have ways of communicating? Will you have a government that listens to you? Will you have services? Will the streets be pothole and bump free? I don't know, but maybe they will. And we're going to talk about the future of urbanization and AI today. I have a spectacular panel, and I'm going to introduce them the way I usually introduce my guests, with my opening monologue, which is a co-created poem because the ends of each line rhyme. That's why it's a poem. It's nothing fancy-schmancy. It's not waxing Shakespearean, so bear with me. And I co-created this with something called ChatGPT, and that's the way it is. So here we go. Listen up. Good day, global audience, to our tech-filled space where the future unfolds at an electrifying pace. Welcome to Technology Revolution, where visions take flight into the future of now. Bonnie D, that's me, shines bright. Do you see me shining, Don? With her Scarlett mic glowing in the digital air, we'll explore urban dreams with AI flair. Okay, Eric Simone, a pioneer with tech in his grasp, from IoT wonders to edge AI, innovations in his clasp. Let me see you clasp, Eric. With clear blades, cutting-edge visions anew, Eric Simone is crafting tomorrow's world with a futuristic view. Did you like that, Eric?
Yeah, it's nice.
Good. Okay, I rent the poems.
Excited for my wife later.
We'll negotiate a group rate later to rent them. Brenna Berman is here, shaping cities with tech-savvy hands, from Chicago smart streets to global urban plans. Data and collaboration solve challenges in the making as Brenna's city tech solutions light the path that billions are taking. How do you like that, Brenna?
Hope that it's billions. That's pretty optimistic.
There you go. Jeff DeCoux is with us, a proven leader in intelligent design, guiding the future for AI autonomy to align. From resilient infrastructure to intelligent zones, Jeff is paving the way for technology's new homes. Jeff, you like
That's
it?
great.
Good, I'm glad. And Don DeLoach is here. I've known him forever. Rocket Wagon Ventures Sparks turns IoT dreams into scalable marks. From deep tech classrooms to startup success, Don is navigating the future, driving progress. I had to make it rhyme, Don. Is that okay? Like that?
Seems great. Thanks.
Seems great. You're very kind. With Bonnie D leading the way, insights will flow. The future of neighborhoods and tech will soon know. Buckle up, watch, and listen for the next exciting almost hour as savvy insight-packed predictions bring us the power. So what'd you think? Thumbs up on the poem? You like that? Okay, here's the deal. Quick quiz for all of you. I gave it a little bit of the opening, the name of the episode, my little bit of what I like at the beginning. I loaded your 1,000-character bio for you, Don, for you, Brenna, for you, Eric, for you, Jeff, into ChatGPT all in one huge block of text. And I said, please write me a draft of an opening monologue that rhymes. And I hit submit button. How many minutes did it take before the core of what I read you appeared on the screen? Anybody think it's minutes? Hold up your hand. In minutes? No takers. How many seconds did it take before it came back to me on the screen? How many seconds? Hold up your hands. 2 hands if needed. Come on. Eric says 5. Brenna says 2. Don says 5. Jeff, join us. What do you think?
No, just a couple.
Couple. Okay.
Seconds. Yeah.
I will tell you, it's down to under 2 seconds. It used to be 3. And my good friend Dan Geller said, stop being polite to ChatGPT. He said, it's not a person. It has no empathy. It has no affect. Stop saying please and thank you. Well, I'm a nice girl from New York and we say please and thank you. So I kept saying please and thank you. And the time went from 3.5 seconds to just over 1 second and a spit. That's how fast. I cannot tell you how many minutes and hours it took me to fix the poem to make it so it aligned perfectly with your bios and I could honor you. So there you go. That's the human time that's added. So welcome, everybody. I'm thrilled to have you all here. I know everybody in the panel except Jeff. And to those of you watching on LinkedIn or YouTube or Facebook, I will tell you that if you received the Zoom link to the show, it's a private Zoom link and we can't accommodate anybody more in the meeting. So please enjoy the live stream and that's just fine. And my live streaming recorder seems to be stalled here. So let's hope everything is going well. Okay, now let's get real introductions. We're going to go around the table, 2 to 3 minutes apiece. Eric, Simone, I'm putting you on speaker view. There we are. Would you please regale us with who are you? What have you been up to? And what's your attachment or your interest in AI and urbanization? Eric, welcome back.
Sure. Great to be here, Bonnie. I am the CEO and co-founder of a company called Clearblade, Internet of Things and intelligent infrastructure company that uses technology and AI to enhance the monitoring and control of all sorts of different things, from rail to electric vehicles to aviation, et cetera. So what we've been up to is really kind of attacking this intelligent infrastructure space, where think of Clearblade as the glue that ties together lots of different point solutions that make a city smart, that make a country smart, and drive solutions like next generation 911 systems and so forth. So this is a perfect topic for us to be talking about today, and I'm excited to be here.
Thank you. And I want to do a shout out as well, Eric, to Danielle. I think her last name is Schultz-Berend, and she works with you, and she was very gracious with her time in helping to engage a few of the other panelists. So please shout out to Danielle and thank you for her posts on LinkedIn.
She's a superstar.
Well,
Thanks.
she's appreciated, just so you know. We do give credit where it's due. Brenna Berman is next. I reached out to Brenna. I said, come on, come back. And she said, I'd love to be on your shows, Bonnie. I said, Brenna, this topic is in your wheelhouse. And here she is, as busy as she is. Brenna, why don't you update us? You were on a show a couple of weeks ago with me on a similar topic. So why don't you update everybody on what you've been up to? And for those who don't know you, start from there. Go ahead.
Yeah. Thanks, Bonnie. I'm excited to be here. Good morning, everyone. I'm Brenna Berman. I've worked at the intersection of cities, technology, and innovation for the better part of 20 years. I hate admitting that. And these days, I'm working on really 2 AI-related topics. The first one is the formation of a collaborative called Rethink AI that is focused on making sure that cities are able to take advantage of this AI moment. Right? Cities are very challenged when it comes to adopting innovation, when it comes to thinking outside the box. And I don't think there's any question about the value of AI and how revolutionary it's going to be in all of our lives. But there is a real question for cities about how well they're going to be able to take advantage of it. So the Rethink AI group is focused on 2 things: how to make sure cities are thinking broadly about the impact of AI beyond just the optimization of current services, as important as that is, and also how they're thinking about engaging the public in discussions and development of AI, both to sort of prevent the fear response and to make sure that they're reflecting the needs and wants of their residents in their work. And then the second thing I've been working on has been a little bit more academic and lives within a university partnership. And that's focused on how to really help cities incorporate AI into long-term planning, something that cities are not particularly good at, right? They live on a 4-year, maybe a 2-year political cycle, and AI is moving obviously much, much faster than that. So it's important to optimize current services, but how do you bring AI into the planning of how cities are growing and changing and what they should look like in 10, 20, even 50 years from now to be healthy and vibrant locations?
That's why we're here today. Thank you very much. Brenna, we all want to know whose guitar is that sitting in the corner behind
It
you?
is not mine. That is my husband's. He's a musician. And it looks cool back there, but I don't get any credit for it.
It does. My drums are in the other room. If you were going to play that, I have my red sticks here on
We
the
have
desk.
drums aplenty over here, Bonnie, whenever you're ready.
Okay, I'm ready. I'm ready. Motown, rock and roll, and a little bit of blues. Thank you very much. Okay, welcome back, Brenna. Jeff DeCoux, I just met you about 18 and a half minutes ago, and we decided on how I would pronounce your name. We'll do it with the French pronunciation, skip the X, Jeff DeCoux. Jeff, I'm putting you on speaker view. Take your full 3 minutes and please introduce yourself to my audience.
Yeah, so glad to be here, Bonnie. Great program. So Jeff DeCoux, chairman of the Autonomy Institute. My entire background is enterprise software, so it's kind of strange to be dealing with intelligent infrastructure and kind of urban design. But what the Autonomy Institute came upon about 5 years ago is there was a delta, a limitation that we were dealing with from the software side of infrastructure within cities to support things like broadband for all, smart cities, and even the enablement of a lot of the things we talk about, whether it be autonomous cars and trucks and vans, and how that was going to be delivered. So the Autonomy Institute ended up was formed as a nonprofit to basically be the bridge between government and industry. It was originally contemplated as a joint venture with the commercial industry, but it became very clear on what Brenna mentions is we're now at the point where the digital and physical world are colliding, and the civil and really the public and private side are coming together. So in order to sustain future cities and future communities and, more connected highways and rural communities, there has to be a far more collaboration between government and industry around technology. You'll hear us talk a lot about intelligent infrastructure economic zones, and that's primarily driven about how do we mobilize substantial investment capital from the private sector to underwrite more of the passive infrastructure to enable these bright futures that we see for cities. And we actually had spent time with even a community in Chicago when Brenna was there, because they were very much leading the charge, pioneers and things like Array of Things, realizing that that enablement would provide a lot of value. But one of the biggest challenges they had is the same challenge that we had, which is how do you deploy more advanced sensors and service systems into the city without defaulting to strapping and bolting and hanging blight all over the city. And that was the challenge that took a while for us to solve.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to meet you. Thank you very much. I don't see any guitars, but a lot of interesting things in your background. We'll do a show on people's backgrounds one of these days. Don DeLoach, how have you been? It's been a while. I know you're always busy doing amazing things and being a very brainiac person. So let's get caught up with you. Don, welcome back and tell us what you've been up to, please.
Yeah, no, it's good to be here. So my background, I spent 20 plus years running venture-backed tech companies. And about 4 or 5 years ago, I kind of branched into the whole entrepreneurial ecosystem. I started Rocket Wagon Venture Studios. And then in the last couple of years, I've also been the managing director of the Smart City Works Business Accelerator program in the DC area. I also started teaching a class called Deep Tech Commercialization at Illinois Tech. And a lot of what I do is really focused on urban innovation. And I love that. The intersection between not so much smart cities, because as Brenna will say, that's not really a term, but when you invert that and say, what makes a city smart? and you start to think about, well, how do we care for our aging population? How do we educate our children? How do we make a safe environment? How do we make an environment that's prosperous for business? All of these are things that innovation, and in particular AI, can play an increasingly important role. So it's really a lot of fun. There's also some sort of artifacts of this. What we can start doing for underserved populations gets more and more impressive. Things around energy and sustainability. But the dark side, or as you know, the trough of disillusionment that Eric sort of made reference to, is really about, as people become more acclimated to what AI is about, they're starting to figure out that there are issues around security, confidentiality, and the trustability of the answer set you're getting. And you're starting to see all kinds of initiatives around that as well, which for me is fascinating because, like, I have 9 different companies I'm involved with right now that are doing various facets of AI, but 4 of those are specifically touching on the trustability or the security or the confidentiality of the information. And I think as we begin to get more acclimated and start to confront and resolve some of these problems, it only makes it more powerful, more accessible, and more usable in ways that are to the benefit of all of us. So yeah, it's fun. I love doing it.
He dared to say fun. I've heard people say exciting too. Thank you, Don. I appreciate that. Trustability, that's a different twist on what you usually hear is the guardrails and the ethics and the hallucination. And just as a sidebar to all of you, I've recently been doing shows where we ask my panelists, ask AI to hallucinate. And we'll say, what would Jolene or Mustang Sally or Albert Einstein or Groot or the Lone Ranger's Tonto say if they were real or alive? What would they say about AI? And we've asked it to hallucinate these conversations just for fun to see how they might have incorporated and used and taken advantage of AI in their career, in their writing, in their whatever their personality was. So I'm trying to get on top of the idea of trustworthiness because we don't know, Don, if these conversations would have ever happened, but we're having a little bit of fun poking at it. And that's one of the things I like to do. So thank you all for the bios. I am fascinated, and I know you're all way above my pay grade, but that's why I'm even more happy to have you here. The word is happier. Thank you, Bonnie. Okay, let's go to the part of the show where I've asked each of you to send me a fictional quote from a movie or a TV character who's also fictional, or a song lyric. It's exhausting. And you're going to relate the quote to our topic. Let's take about 2 minutes each because we want to get to the predictions. And I think you're going to roll in some of your predictions into your quotes. So Eric Simone, see, I'm still pronouncing it right. Eric has picked a quote from very, very well-known, iconic quote from Ferris, played by Matthew Broderick, way back in 1986. Were any of you alive then? I think most of you were. Teen comedy, Ferris Bueller's Day. Eric saying, what is she talking about? It was written, co-produced, and directed by John Hughes, and it was his love letter to the Sears Tower Wrigley Field Art Institute of Chicago. Brenna, you know about all this. He said, I wanted to capture as much of Chicago as I could, not just the architecture, but the spirit. It was one of the top grossing films of 86. $70.1 million over a $5.5 million budget. Can you imagine being an angel investor on that movie? Unbelievable. Believable. Okay, here we go. By the way, Hughes wrote the screenplay in less than a week. That's motivation. Here we go. The quote is, the question isn't, what are we going to do? The question is, what aren't we going to do? Eric, has there ever been a more perfect quote for this time? Everybody else, I love your quotes. But Eric, why don't you take us through this? What does this have to do with today?
Well, of course, with AI, the question isn't what are we going to do, but what aren't we going to do, right? And so the key there is to focus on where AI really benefits the citizens of a city, the citizens of a country, not just technology for technology's sake, but there are so many applications, so many things we can be doing and should be doing that the options are endless. So look, I'm a big Ferris Bueller fan growing up in the suburbs of Chicago. I wanted to be Ferris Bueller, and I could never quite get past the Sausage King of Chicago to get into that restaurant. So I always go to my go-to quotes.
Thank you. It's a wonderful quote, and I'm glad that we got a Chicago reference in there, you and Brenna both, and all kinds of good things. Thank you so much. Let's go to Brenna. Brenna has picked a quote from Lane Meyer, played by John Cusack, about to ski down Eric's nodding, a treacherous slope. His best friend, Charles DeMar, played by Curtis Armstrong, tells him this thing. Later, a French exchange student, Monique Junot, played by Diane Franklin, says the same thing to Lane. And here, the movie, of course, is Better Off Dead, 1985 black comedy film, blah, blah, blah. Here we go. Go that way really fast. If something gets in your way, turn. What is, I think we know the answer, but what does this have to do with our topic, Brenna?
Yeah, no, it's a fantastic movie. And now I know Eric and I are soulmates around movie selections because they're from the same sort of genre and time period. But what it has to do with AI, especially using AI to influence long-term planning, is right now a lot of what cities do is, here's where I'm starting, here's my goal. Let's just rush at it. And if something gets in our way, we'll turn and keep rushing at it. AI is going to give us, or is giving us, a better way to do things, so that we can maybe, to extend that analogy maybe a little too far, right? Map out the hill, plan out a route, and adjust as we go down so that we get to our goal in sort of the most efficient and effective way possible.
Reminds me of the quote from Friends where they're bringing the couch up the staircase. And wasn't it Ross who says, pivot, 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 and they break the couch. Anyway, thank you very much, Brenna. Love that. Good quote. Jeff DeCoux is new to the show. You did a good job with this one. This is a quote from Maximus Decimus Meridius, played by Russell Crowe, the movie Gladiator. Of course it is. 2000 historical epic film directed by Ridley Scott, Russell Crowe, Joachim, I never know how to pronounce his name, Phoenix, Connie Nielsen, Oliver Reed, who passed away before it was done, Richard Harris, Eric Jacobi, and somebody else whose name I can't pronounce. The victorious Roman general Maximus Decimus Meridius is selected by Emperor Marcus Aurelius to succeed him on the throne because his own son, Commodus, he can't rule anything. He couldn't rule himself out of a paper box. Angered by the decision, Commodus, played by Phoenix, secretly murders his father and seizes the throne, then kills Maximus's family, forced into slavery. Maximus becomes a gladiator, and a good one, rising through the ranks in the arena, determined to avenge the murders of his family and the emperor. Here we go. It was the second highest grossing of 2000. Look at the difference in price here, Jeff. It grossed $465 million compared to what we're talking about Ferris Bueller in 86, and 5 Academy Awards, including Best Picture, Best Actor, and Gladiator 2 is scheduled to come out this fall. Who knew? Here is the quote you picked. What we do in life echoes in eternity. Oh, Jeff, be still my heart. What does this mean to our topic? Jeff, are you muted? Yep, unmute, dear.
Yeah,
there we go.
It's not necessarily the movie. It was just a quote, because I'm looking for a quote that basically emphasized that life is incredibly short for all of us. And in our life, we should do everything we possibly can to propel society forward faster and secure a better future for our friends, families. And I kind of felt that quote was good because it can echo what we do, but we have to work really hard at it. And this whole strategy, this whole conversation today is good because I believe we've been at a standstill for quite some time. As a software developer, I take pride in that, but really it basically put us in the dark ages on infrastructure and city leadership for 30 years. And we need to get back to the bold leadership we had in the 40s, 50s, 60s, because you look at that time, if it was not for the leadership then, we would not have rivers and dams and the incredible cities that we have today. We've really been at a standstill. And the best way to show that, fly over to China, take a look, and then fly back. And you're going to feel like you just landed in a third world country.
Here, when you get home.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Okay. That was insightful. You stopped me cold in my tracks there. I'm going to put my smile back on for Don's quote. Don DeLoach has picked a quote from Bud Fox, iconic movie played by, of course, Charlie Sheen. Wall Street, 1987 drama film directed and co-written by Oliver Stone, starring Michael Douglas, Charlie Sheen. Daryl Hannah, and Martin Sheen. We got a lot of Sheens in there. Bud Fox, a young stockbroker we all know, becomes involved with Gordon Gekko, played by Michael Douglas, a wealthy, unscrupulous corporate raider. Interestingly enough, the studio wanted Warren Beatty to play Gekko. I don't know if you knew this, Don. And Oliver Stone wanted Richard Gere to play Gekko, and they both turned it down. And to this day, Sheen, Douglas, and Stone are approached on the street by stockbrokers who say, I chose this career because I watched you in the movie and I liked what I saw. So they're still getting feedback. At least that's what Wikipedia says. Okay, here's the quote Don has picked. Sometimes you have to lose everything to gain something greater. Don, I'm putting you on speaker view. Tell us more.
Yeah, well, first of all, in the entrepreneurial ecosystem is filled with people who have crashed and burned before they kind of rose from the ashes and achieved something. And actually, if you look historically, like the Abraham Lincoln is a great example of all kinds of failures before achieving tremendous success. And I think that one of the things that comes out in that quote to me is that an artifact of the failure is an element of humility that I think, especially in the tech world, opens up the aperture for looking at new things. And I think when it comes to things like AI, and actually you can go back over trend after trend in technology. And what I've found is that people who were very successful in something in a prior trend or phase of technology are often the most reluctant to embrace where it's going. And I think to the extent that somebody can leave the hubris at the door and retain intellectual curiosity, the ability to then grasp the bigger picture, the emerging landscape, it is better and easier and more likely to happen. And I think right now we're on the doorstep of something that's pretty undeniable in terms of what's going on with AI. And I know that there's a lot of resistance in some corners around it, but I think if you have the combination of humility and intellectual curiosity, your ability to grasp and leverage what is this remarkable trend is good.
Intellectual curiosity. That's an oxymoron for a lot of people. I'm sorry, but I think we're heading in the right. Oh, did I say that? Whoops! Am I gonna get smacked for that? I think we're headed in the right direction. At least I hope so. And just a full reveal to all of you. I don't go for doom and gloom and AI is going to put us all out of business and it's going to sink us all. There are plenty of shows, plenty of people talking about this, but my focus here on Technology Revolution is the positive. It's the benefits. It's the opportunities. It's the excitement, Don. It's the fun of where we might go and how we might do things better, differently, but hopefully better. That's where we're going. So thank you all for the quotes. Fascinating. Now, here's what's going to happen next. I've already put one of Eric Simone's predictions into a private chat to him, and I'm going to read his prediction. And Eric's going to unpack it for 2 or 3 minutes. I'm going to put him on speaker view. And then if any of you would like to comment, a 1-minute comment, because we want to get as many predictions as possible. I think you each have 5 fingers. Hope I'm not upsetting anybody. 5 fingers on both hands. You have 4 fingers that are polite ones. Wiggle one of the polite fingers at me, you know the one not to, and I will call on you for your comments. And it's fine. We'll go around the table. And then Brenna, I'll put a prediction into the chat for you, then one for Jeff, one for Don. And let's see how far we get. Okay, so Eric Simone has said the following. AI will manage building systems. Hey, we all got to live and work somewhere. I think we're not intense anymore. I could be wrong. Such as HVAC, lighting, and security to improve energy efficiency, comfort, and safety for all occupants. Eric, why don't you take us through the genesis of this statement? I know there's some infrastructure, the understructure of how we get to this. So go ahead.
Yeah, so we've been in the middle of this space for a number of years, and we're seeing kind of a shift right now in companies that, for example, have global campuses, 200 plus campuses around the world, where they've struggled to get energy data, maintenance data for all of their buildings. And we're starting to see a push away, or at least to augment, traditional building management systems into more flexible, what they call building operating systems, to stream data from energy data, stream lighting data, HVAC data, et cetera, into AI systems to then optimize and control the operation of these buildings. The thing that we're hearing is flexibility is key to be able to work cross vendors, cross systems, and also not to tether the solution to just what's inside the building. A lot of them are extending to fleets of vehicles that they manage also outside of these buildings. So we've seen a tremendous uptick here, and I'm seeing some barriers get broken down where they're now getting access to this data and able to categorize and understand the data. So now they can stream it into their AI systems. Prior to this, it was a lot of data that they couldn't make sense of. They couldn't really get their data scientists to get their arms around it. And we're seeing a lot of movement in this space because of energy and because of commitments to carbon neutrality, right? This is now getting real as opposed to doing carbon offsets. They're saying, look, we really have to show progress over the next decade or two that we're reducing this spend and finding more efficient ways to run our buildings. So I see AI as a big push in this space, and there's a lot of attention being applied right there today.
Very interesting comments. Don, I see that nice finger. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not a paid spokesman for Clearblade. I just play one on TV. But I will add to that, because I think it's noteworthy that solutions that have a common data layer architecturally that can distill information across the ecosystem, if you will, in this case, a building and then beyond the building, the leverage of AI goes up dramatically. And you're seeing large corporations training their teams and retooling their architectures back towards a common data layer to do these very things. And I think one of the things that I've noticed as a friend of Clearblade is that they've had really, really nice success, in part because it's so aligned with this whole AI discussion that we're having and the leverage you get. So again, I'm just weighing in from the cheap seats, but I think it's a worthy observation.
Thank you. Anybody else? Brenna, comment, or Jeff, you good?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a powerful way that we're going to see impact on all sets of businesses, private and public. Yeah.
And my question on this is, when will it come to small cities, to local, tucked away like where I'm living now? I'll tell you all a story later. Yeah. But when will we get the benefit? Eric, go ahead.
Yeah, we've got to make. Look, I say this all the time. Brenna's dead on. Smart city is kind of a misnomer because it's a nice tag, but we can't make a city smart until we can make a building smart, until we can make a roadway smart, until we can make a transit system smart. And we have to start there, but there has to be a common way of sharing this data and streaming it into a common location that has visibility and feeds these AI systems. So it's really that glue that's gonna bring these solutions to life.
And we need to make people smart first. And that's a perfect segue into the prediction I've picked from Brenna Berman, right, Brenna? So here, I'm going to read a little bit of it. Thank you, Eric. She says, AI will empower cities to adjust proactively to make long-term proactive education investments. AI-driven predictions will help cities decide. We're talking about urbanization, these cities that are growing. Help cities decide when and where to build schools before classrooms are overcrowded, and lobby for changes to training so teachers can impact skills required by the future workforce that has not been born yet. I'm going to stop there, Brenna. Why don't you continue to talk about this? Great topic. Go ahead.
Thanks, Bonnie. I mean, so really this could apply to any of the major services that a city provides or that our culture needs. So when you think about education, right now, the way we plan and invest in education is, whether you're talking about infrastructure or the skills of the workforce or what the curriculum looks like, it's pretty reactive, right? So right now in the community where I live, we're building a new elementary school because 2 of our elementary schools are already overcrowded. And so, they've all added these sort of extra temporary structures to them, et cetera. It's going to take 3 years to build that school. And by the time that school is ready, I would bet, given what I know about this neighborhood, that school will start off at capacity. And so we're already not building enough infrastructure where I live for what the schools need. If you were able to back up and build a longer term sort of AI-informed plan for the educational needs of your city, you'd be able to get ahead of that and answer questions like, when are we likely to need a new elementary school or high school or whatever before it's crowded? And what's the best way to plan for that? And what kind of facilities is that school going to need? And at the same time, you could actually, if you're going to have a transition period because your community is shifting, right? We had this challenge in Chicago where, the neighborhoods shift, you have more people in other places at different times. We needed to close some schools and transfer kids to other schools. Putting aside the intense politics of that decision, if we had had a forward-looking model around that problem, we would have been able to help those students transition without this abrupt, today you go to your community school, tomorrow you're commuting 20 minutes through the city of Chicago to a new school, and do that by leveraging existing vacant infrastructure or soon to be vacant infrastructure that can substitute for a school. The same is true for the workforce, right? We all love to talk about whether your parents or your employers, right? How do we make sure people graduating at any level from our school system are going to be employable, have the skills to drive the US economy forward? And a lot of times, right, and we're having this discussion right now about AI, except the discussion in my kids' middle school is whether or not they should even allow AI in the classroom. They're not teaching it, right? They're actually responding to it, but it's certainly not a skill set they're worried about these kids having in, when will my son be out of college? In 8 years when he gets out of college, knock on wood. Whereas it's, while the impact of AI is, giving us all a lot to imagine, the advent of AI is actually not a surprise, right? We were all talking about these types of capabilities and using the early forms of these capabilities 10, 15, 20, even 30 years ago. And so the time to plan for the workforce for the advent of AI was 30 years ago. And we don't work that way. My kids are still learning cursive, which I'm pretty sure is not a programming language. So my strong belief is that AI is going to give school systems and cities the ability to proactively plan for the kind of school district that they want. And the challenge is going to be, can they engage collaboratively with, current employees and administrators to build the processes needed to adopt these kinds of future plans? Because it's not how we work today.
So many good points in there, Brenna, but I'm just going to tell you, don't worry about the cursive, because the resurgence of handwritten notes, thank you notes in particular, is considered a great going back and going forward of etiquette, of kindness, of mindfulness. Write somebody a handwritten thank you note for something they did. It's considered stepping out from the crowd, stopping the email and the text messages and saying, I'm a person, you're a person. I care about you. I took the time, and I hope to hell you can read my goddamn handwriting. That was aside. Anyway.
They can be printed, though. They don't have to be in cursive. I believe in the thank you note, but they can be
that's
printed.
true. That's true. A famous DJ was once on one of my radio shows, and I was so honored to be able to interview her big time in Texas. And I was in Texas, she was, and she took the time to write, snail mail, stamp, envelope, address, a handwritten thank you note. I have cherished that all these years. It was amazing. This was like 20 years ago. Anybody have any comments on what Brenna said? There were multiple threads in there about the building of the schools, about the education, about the workforce. Everybody's nodding. Anybody have any comments? Don, come on, say something. Anything?
I mean, I, as usual, agree with Brenna on this one. I think I'm a big fan of thinking holistically about things. And I think that when you look at how cities evolve, you have to think that way. And so I agree with everything she's saying.
Jeff, you pointed. Go ahead. You raised your hand.
Yeah, 100% agree. I think AI, we ended up homeschooling our 4 kids, and it was at the same time that all the curriculum from the universities went online, at the same time that Khan Academy came out. And it really shocked me with the realization that the kids are unbelievable sponges for knowledge. They can go through so much content so quickly, but it's at different paces. And what AI is going to do is really enable that custom tutor to everybody, and allow the teacher to really be an inspired visionary for the kids in the classroom versus a construct of just grading and teaching. I think there's so many ways that this could be played in a powerful way, but I'm just looking forward to seeing over the next couple of years the leadership from different school districts making it happen.
Thank you.
I'll add in on a
we just
personal
lost
note.
Don. He'll come back. Go ahead, Eric, please. Yes.
Yeah, so one of the reasons I moved from, I love Austin, Texas, but I moved to the suburbs of Chicago was for education, right? So, because where I was in Austin grew so fast that the schools were overloaded. We didn't have quality education. We could have went private school, but I went to a known quantity of a high school in Libertyville where I graduated from and moved my kids up there, and they actually absolutely thrived here. So it's a good example of what we needed to do for our kids.
I will also mention when I lived in Great Neck, New York, Brenna, I lived there for 32 years before I moved south to different places. There was a big controversy over a certain high school, shall we say, a religious organization's day high school, something like that. It was on a busy road. And Don is back. And I will tell you that the brouhaha in the community was the traffic pattern on that curved, busy road, which went over the Long Island Railroad, but above ground and connected two parts of Great Neck, was you cannot have parents picking up and dropping off kids or kids who are old enough to drive cars at this school, which is located right at the corner of this main thoroughfare in Great Neck. And I don't remember whether they were able to pass it or not. So cities growing, traffic, right, dropping off. We all see sitcoms about that segment of what does it do for congestion, right? What does it do for safety? All of that good stuff. Don, you're back. What's that, Brenna?
We could do an entire show, Bonnie, on the politics and lack of efficiency in school pickup and drop off.
I'm sure we could. Yeah. Don, you okay? You dropped off and you came right back in. We're happy to see you.
My network just dropped and now I'm back.
It happens. Well, we're glad. I didn't even have to let you back in. See, Zoom said he was here. We're letting him back in. There you go. Let's work from other. Jeff DeCoux, we're looking at one of your predictions. I like this one. This is interesting. Number 3, you say our community and city infrastructure will be maintained. Everybody ready for this? By autonomous AI robotics. Oh, goodness gracious. Somebody had to say the word. Go ahead, Jeff, talk to us.
Well, I think all of us get excited, or many of us get excited about autonomous cars and trucks and urban air mobility, which I think is a thing that will actually take hold over time. But I mean, there's a $1 trillion market that is being sorely overlooked, and that is maintenance and sustainment. You have every single state leader talking about them not having the amount of capital to basically repair everything from potholes to bridge deficiencies. And there is so many powerful robotics that have been produced over the last 20 years. From it's like Switzerland has robotics that just do things that just kind of blow your mind that it can be done. And that is going to be where I think we're going to see massive adoption of autonomous robotics. Is not picking up grandma, taking her to the doctor maybe, but how do we repair and maintain the infrastructure around us and drastically reduce the lack. Right now we have the last grade, I think, of $4.2 trillion of infrastructure issues that need to be addressed. If these jobs we don't have enough people to actually go off and do these jobs. So it's also an area where we're not replacing people. We're basically empowering work to be done that's not already being done. So dull, dirty, dangerous jobs will be taken over by autonomous robotics.
Give us an example. You said that they were amazing in Switzerland. Did you say you have a couple of examples?
Well, yeah, everything from repairing on electrical grids. There's robots that actually repair bridges. They diagnose, the concrete degradation, steel degradation, rust, and there's all types of systems that are built to actually do the repair or do the injection of. Like in concrete's case, injection of material that allows the concrete to become healed and repaired. But just potholes. I mean, just imagine a Roomba that's designed to basically cover, go out on the roadway at night and replace a little tiny divot that actually happened that day, because potholes are a thing of decades, not a thing of overnight. And if you take advantage of the early preventative, it doesn't take much to allow our overall infrastructure to be maintained securely for decades and upon decades.
Thank you. Brenna, go.
One of the best examples I've seen of what Jeff's talking about, because he's absolutely right. And then you said Roomba, which is what if you are in the business of construction and you're using cement mixers, that cement mixer actually needs to be cleaned out on a regular basis of dry concrete. And right now that's done by a guy who gets in the mixer with a hand jack, and the impact to your hearing and other aspects. So it's expensive because you have an actual human resource doing something, and it is both dangerous and uncomfortable, I am assuming, having never done it myself. And there's a sort of a beta of what is essentially a Roomba that gets into, you put it into your cement mixer and it follows it all around, and it does it without human intervention. And not only does it chip off the dried concrete, it also uses, I actually don't know what the technology is, but it uses technology to scan how deep it's building up so you can get ahead on the balance maintenance of the tumbler.
Gives new meaning to the old phrase, a chip off the old block. I'm sorry, Brenna. I just had to. Don's not laughing. Okay, Don, I put a prediction for Don into, thank you, Jeff. Very interesting. Don, we're going to touch on something that we haven't, that people are worried about, and I think you're the one to do this. Don says, data used to train the internal LLMs, that's large language models, for a city's AI, will be gathered and curated across all aspects of a city to address concerns about, here we go, confidentiality, privacy, and accuracy with increasing effectiveness and better outcomes. Don, can you put our minds at ease here or give us some hope? Go ahead.
Yeah, well, let me start by saying my mind is a little bit more at ease when I saw Jeff and Eric and Brenna nodding as you read that. So thanks for that.
Very much so.
Yeah, so I mean, everybody understands that there are issues with AI, especially when you're out in the wild and you're using LLMs that are trained across a massive amount of data, when in fact, a lot of times the use of AI is very specific, and the data that trains the LLM is often resident within the organization that's using it. And you need to have a preference for that data. So you have things like RAG files and tools that are used to either keep the information sources within a firewall, if you will, or reach out beyond that, but do it on a deferential in a way that gives preference to the internal data and doesn't expose the information in the prompt to train the LLM. And these are all nuanced considerations about how this will all work. And you can say, okay, well, people are overly, paranoid or whatever, but it really isn't. And there's two key elements to it. One is there's certain information that you don't want being used to train an external LLM. Information about your health, information about intellectual property, confidential information. I'm pretty sure if a large company is involved in an M&A transaction, they probably don't want, ChatGPT to reflect some of the terms of that deal in a response to somebody. But there are mechanisms for doing that perfectly well today in terms of some way these enterprise agreements and the APIs are set up, and there are already guardrails for that. But here's where it gets kind of interesting. The whole trustability element is a function of how that data is managed inside the internal mechanisms of some of the AI solutions. And there's a huge body of work being done using things like statistical metadata and vector databases to try to triangulate and increase the quality of the answers as a combination of the math as well as the source of the data. And where is that important? It's important in things like regulated industries, like banking, like healthcare, like mental health services, things that do have very legitimate reasons to try to make sure that you're not taking an action based on the AI solution that's actually doing more harm than good. And I think that as people become more and more acclimated to these type of issues, you're seeing a bunch of work being done. And I'll say one more thing. So I've talked to a number of different startups where they say, and hey, we're working on this, and it has to do with trust, or it has to do with competence, or whatever. And I'll say, well, who do you think your competition is? Well, Don, we've looked in the market and we don't see anybody else doing what we're doing. There are 1,000 or more companies doing every one of these things right now. This is going to happen. There are all kinds of very bright minds working on iterating to get to a point where AI is more usable, is more trustable, is more confidential. And that's just a fact of how we're going to proceed. So yeah, I think that's what we're going to see.
Going to take a while to get to that trust level and education. I think it all goes hand in hand, and familiarity, and it's everywhere. Am I right? And the idea of how is it being trained? And that's the big brouhaha today is it using proprietary information? Is it using creativity? Is it using something that somebody should be paid for and it's not paying them for that? So that's a big nut to crack over the coming years. We've got 3 minutes left. Thank you, Don. I just want to introduce one more topic very briefly, and I have a question for all of you. We have so much more to talk about. Would you all like to come back for a part 2 in a couple weeks? Would you like to? And send me some. We've covered a bulk of the predictions you've sent, so I'll need some fresh. Now that you know, Jeff, how this works and where we're all going, let's build some more. But Brenna has one that we will cover more. Thank you. Jordan is our engineer right now. Hi, Jordan. We've got 2 minutes left. Brenna says AI will enhance cities' ability to respond to climate change. I don't everybody get all up in the political part of this, but AI-driven flooding models. Cities flood. We know that. Dams go over. Okay. We'll help cities understand the impact of rising sea levels decades before flooding begins. Brenna, I can give you about a minute and a half just to introduce us, and we'll start the next part 2 with this. Go ahead, Brenna.
No, I can be super quick, right? Right now, I mean, let's think about Florida. We know that large portions of Florida are going to be underwater in the next, maybe not even 10 years, right? Well, how about we don't build houses there now, so that we don't have to move those people and relocate that infrastructure investment? So this is similar to the school example, but the ability to build long-term climate models that cities and states can use to drive investment, and where they've grown new neighborhoods, and cities have influence over where people and businesses locate, right? They don't drive all of it, but they have influence over it. And so let's stop putting things where people are not going to be able to live in the relatively short term.
Where will the snowbirds go? That's all
They can still come to Florida. Let's just move them in.
Thank you all. I want you all to join me. I want you to put up your finger. Jeff, you haven't done this, but I think Don may remember Eric, Brenna. And here we go. On the count of 3, you're going to join me in yelling no, 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 as loud as you can. People say the future is already here. And our answer is 1, 2, 3. No, no. When I said that sentence, I was thinking about it. It was in the future. I said it. Now it's in the past. We still have a lot more work to do on helping to make it a better future. Let's talk about cities and urbanization again. Stick around, guests, and we will pick a date and get this on the books. Jordan is our engineer now. Matt started us off. Bonnie D saying thank you to our listeners, our viewers. Those of you who got the Zoom link, sorry you couldn't join, but this is a private conversation here. Everybody wave goodbye. Guests don't go away. But wave goodbye, LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube, and virtually to the Voice America Business Channel. Jordan, are we out?
All clear. Great show.
There we are.